Thank you for joining us for this recorded video by the California Student Aid Commission. This training provides an overview of common financial aid errors that students and their parents make on the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act applications. This training will provide recommendations on the best ways to assist your students to correct those errors. To be eligible for Cal Grant consideration, students must have two components: a completed financial aid application, either the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application, and a matched GPA. All students, including high school seniors, can submit their financial aid application beginning October 1st. It is critical that both the application and the GPA are received by the March 2nd deadline. This will give students full consideration for a Cal Grant as early as November. However, there are various scenarios in which a student has submitted their application and has not gotten processed for financial aid. In this presentation, we are going to review various scenarios that may cause errors with the financial aid process and how you can help your students avoid and fix these errors. There are two deadlines when it comes to Cal Grant awarding. The first is the Cal Grant priority filing deadline of March 2nd. This deadline ensures that all students, high school, college, and returning adult college students, can be processed for all award types and award cycles. March 2nd is also the final day for high schools to upload GPAs to ensure that their students will be considered for the entitlement Cal Grant. The second deadline, on September 2nd, was previously known as the Community College deadline. This deadline was specifically reserved for students who attended a California community college, and it allowed them the opportunity to receive a competitive Cal Grant award by applying by September 2nd. With these legislative changes, community college students may now apply for an entitlement Cal Grant award until September 2nd, and the previous barriers to Cal Grant entitlement awards based on age and time out of high school for students at community colleges will be removed. Additional changes include the ability of community college students receiving a Cal Grant to keep their Cal Grant when transferring to a public university, such as a UC or a CSU, and the ability for students transferring to a private institution to still qualify for a potential transfer entitlement or competitive Cal Grant. Please note that this important expansion of the Cal Grant access takes effect in the current 2021-2022 academic year. When assisting students with the college application process, the first thing to do is check with your students and ask, was the correct application, that is the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application, completed? Students should submit the application according to their citizenship status as of the date of application submission. Another question to ask is, was the application submitted for the correct academic year? Students should complete the application for the upcoming academic year. So if they graduated in June 2021 and will be attending college immediately after high school, they should have applied for the 2021-22 academic year. Another question is, was the application submitted on time by the March 2nd deadline? For full Cal Grant consideration, applications need to be submitted between October 1st to March 2nd, with the exception of community college students who apply by September 2nd. And lastly, was the application signed by a parent? If students are dependent, they must have a parent signature. Parent signatures can be submitted electronically or via the paper signature form. What can you do to make sure that your students' applications were completed correctly? Access these reports in web grants to check the application status or completion of your students. The first report is the non-SSN GPA status report. This displays students with unmatched GPAs and identifies students who have not submitted a FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application. The second report is the student summary report. This identifies incomplete financial aid applications and lists students who are awarded a Cal Grant. And lastly, the student summary report. This displays students whose GPAs were not uploaded. If you would like additional training on how to upload GPAs or on GPA reports and matching, please check out our training schedule on our website listed at the bottom of the screen. The GPA reports and matching webinars are offered between October 1st to March 2nd. As mentioned earlier, a student needs to have a financial aid application and a GPA submitted by the March 2nd deadline for Cal Grant consideration. Was an on-time GPA received from the high school? High school counselors can use the non-SSN GPA status report to confirm whether the student has a GPA that has been submitted and/or matched. Students can check their Web Grants for Students portal to confirm that a GPA has been submitted. Did the GPA match to the student's application? Not all GPAs will automatically match to the corresponding applications, especially if the demographic information uploaded with the GPA is different from the demographic information provided by students on their financial aid applications. The non-SSN GPA status report identifies matched GPA records, unmatched records, and students who have yet to submit a financial aid application. Current seniors and previous graduates who list your high school on the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application are conveniently sorted by graduation year. Notice the two columns, match and matched fields. Match column indicators, yes, GPA and financial aid application has been matched. There is no further action needed. However, you should outreach to students with no and no app in the match column. No means that the GPA and financial aid applications do not match. Partially matched fields are identified in the adjacent match fields column. No app means that the student has not submitted a financial aid application. Outreach to students prior to March 2nd to remind them to submit the application before the deadline. And even if it's after March 2nd, encourage students to still apply. Keep in mind that March 2nd and September 2nd are Cal Grant deadlines. Students applying after the Cal Grant deadlines may still be eligible for other aids like the Pell Grant, California College Promise Grant, Chafee Grant for foster youth, and some scholarships. Because the GPA no longer uses Social Security numbers to match, it is important that demographic information matches on both the financial aid application as well as the GPA that the school has uploaded. Is the student's name, address, email address, and/or date of birth different on the GPA upload and their financial aid application? For example, students might have multiple last names, or they moved over the summer and never updated the school with their new address. If the information doesn't match, the GPA will linger in our system unless data is edited to match with the application. What we recommend that you do is prior to uploading the GPAs, provide your seniors with the name and address that the school or district intends to upload with their GPA. If the information has changed, students can update their information or request a name change at the school. This can be done by providing your students with the GPA demographic verification form, which can be accessed via CSAC's webpage, and it's also available in the resource section of the annual statewide financial aid workshop workbook. Another option is to contact CSAC early if you anticipate a matching issue because of a name change or any other change that would prevent a GPA from matching. You can also remind students that one small error with their name or date of birth on their financial aid application may result in weeks of delays in being processed for award consideration. And last but not least, remind students to double check whatever forms of identification they have before completing a financial aid application. Remember, the college will want their award to be in the same name as their identifications. You can meet with your students and review their student aid reports if they completed the FAFSA, or the Cal student aid reports if they completed the California DREAM Act application, to check that their name, address, email address, and date of birth matches what the school uploaded in the GPA batches. If it does not match, you can edit the GPA and then force match the edited GPA to its corresponding application. Please note that the GPA edit functionality does close every year on April 30th. High schools are responsible for editing and matching unmatched GPAs, which is broken down into these 4 steps. Step 1, identify unmatched GPAs using the non-SSN GPA status report. Step 2, contact students to obtain a copy of their SAR or CalSAR. Step 3, edit the GPA demographic information to mirror the SAR or CalSAR. You can find this by logging into your Web Grants, going to Cal Grants, click on non-SSN GPA, and then click on Edit Non-SSN GPA to make edits to your student's account so it matches their SAR or CalSAR. Make sure that you save any changes that you make. And step 4, you can force match the edited GPA to the corresponding financial aid application. There are instances where students' name or demographic information is so similar that it matches to the wrong person. We see that happen often with twins because their address, date of birth, and sometimes even their names are similar. Is the GPA matched with someone else? In rare instances, there might be a student with the exact same name and date of birth who gets matched with the wrong GPA. In both instances, contact school support for assistance to match the GPA to the correct student. What about when web grants cannot locate the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application to match your GPA to? Web grants will display no ICER data found for selection criteria. Web grants cannot find the associated financial aid application. This situation is common and suggests one of these scenarios. Either the application was not submitted, or the application was submitted within the last 10 days, or the application is incomplete or missing a parent signature, or if the match is attempted before editing the GPA. In this instant, you can modify your query by expanding the search by using either a partial name instead of a full name, or have the student provide their SAR or CalSAR to see exactly how the application was submitted. Then edit the GPA record to match the SAR or CalSAR exactly, and then attempt the match once again. Was a paper parent signature page required for the FAFSA? This happens when a FAFSA filer's parents are unable to create an FSA ID because they do not possess a social security number or an email address. Parents will need to print out the FAFSA parent signature form, sign in black ink, and mail it to the address provided on the form. This can take anywhere from a few weeks to months to process. With schools and libraries shut down, some of your students might have issues accessing a printer. So what happens if your student does not have access to a printer for the FAFSA parent signature page? Step 1. Students should have already created their FSA ID and will use it to sign the FAFSA electronically. Step 2. If a parent is unable to get an FSA ID because they do not have a social security number or email address, they will not be able to sign it electronically. Click on Other Options to sign and submit. This is the screen that students and parents will see. Parents can print out the parent signature page, but please note that parents do need to sign in black ink and send the page to FAFSA. However, there's also an option to specify on the FAFSA if no printer is available. By doing so, the student aid report, the SAR, will be mailed to the student by postal mail for the signature within 72 hours. Step 3, students will click Submit My FAFSA Now. Step 4, the next page will populate with the confirmation page. Since the student and their families do not have a printer, they will need to write down the confirmation number and data release number. Alternately, they might be able to print the confirmation number as a PDF document and save it on their computer if they aren't using a public computer. They could also copy and paste it into an email message to themselves or even take a screenshot on their phone or computer. This process might take longer than expected, so please have your students get this done as soon as possible. If the signature page is not received by the FAFSA processor, the FAFSA will be rejected. The reject code 15 is for missing parent signature, and the reject code 16 is for missing student signature. And the student aid report will be sent to the student by postal mail for the missing signature. If the SAR is not received within 14 days or the student wants to speed up the process, they should call the Federal Student Aid Information Center at 1-800-4-FED-AID to ask for a copy of the SAR. The SAR can be signed and mailed back to provide the required signatures. Keep in mind that the estimated expected family contribution, the EFC, field will be blank and the application will be incomplete. Their EFC will not be calculated until they mail the signed signature page. Are there unresolved errors on the application, such as financial data that is incomplete? Was an EFC, or expected family contribution, generated? Ask the student to go back into their financial aid application to check that financial data was entered for their parents. There are various scenarios as to why there might be an error or no EFC generated. Let's look at them in the next couple of slides. If the parents chose not to file their taxes, they have to make sure that they are under the IRS earning threshold. It's important to note that without parents' tax information, students still need to submit their financial aid application on time. It will be considered incomplete, and students will need to follow up with their financial aid office at the college that they choose to attend. These are the 2020 IRS income thresholds for use when completing the 2022-2023 financial aid applications. Another common error that both students and parents make is reporting the same dollar amount for taxes paid as they report for adjusted gross income, as we see in this example. The language in this question can be difficult to understand, and it is something that both parents and students do with frequency and can prevent their application from processing if not corrected. If students make this error, they just need to go back into their application, make the correction, and resubmit their financial aid application. Was the student awarded a Cal Grant C incorrectly? Cal Grant C is specifically for students who are attending a vocational or technical certificate program. There are various reasons why the student might be processed for a Cal Grant C. Students will get processed for Cal Grant C consideration if they do not have a GPA on file, or if their GPA is below a 2.0, or if they have listed that they are pursuing a certificate or diploma program on their financial aid application. If the student does have a GPA that is on time and qualifies the student for Cal Grant A or B consideration, make sure that the student listed that they are pursuing a bachelor's or associate's degree on their financial aid application. You will need to contact school support for assistance in reprocessing the student. Does the student have at least one Cal Grant eligible school listed on their financial aid application? For Cal Grant consideration, students need to have at least one Cal Grant eligible school listed on their financial aid application. You can find a list of the current Cal Grant eligible schools on the link listed on this slide. Now, let's talk about something we're going to call the no Cal Grant zone. Both the student's GPA and family income and assets are used to determine Cal Grant eligibility. It's important for students to know how their GPA and family income are used in consideration for a Cal Grant and how they can be impacted by both. Remember that Cal Grant A and Cal Grant B have different GPA requirements and different income ceilings. We don't want students to get caught in the middle of these requirements. That is to say, with family income too high for a Cal Grant B, but a GPA too low for a Cal Grant A. In that case, they would not be eligible for any Cal Grant because they would be in that no Cal Grant zone. We recommend that you make students and their families aware of both the Cal Grant GPA requirements and the corresponding income ceilings during the student's freshman year. This information can be found on the CSAC website. If a student is a high school senior and falls into this category, please remind them not to be discouraged. They can apply for financial aid the following year, and as long as their high school submits their GPA, it will include their senior year grades, which will hopefully boost them to eligibility. Last but not least, here are some helpful hints for students. Students should apply to at least one California college, even if they're sure that they're going out of state. Students should also apply regardless of income. They should never assume that they can't get any aid. Students should also create one email for all applications and use it for college and financial aid applications. We don't recommend that students use their high school emails on their financial aid application because once they start college, they might not have access to that email. And last but not least, students should apply early Remember that students can apply beginning October 1st with either the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application. We hope that you have found this presentation on common financial aid errors helpful. High school counselors, administrators, and financial aid administrators should contact the school support team or the IT service desk at the Commission if they need further assistance. Students and their parents should contact student support if they need further assistance. Thank you for joining us today.